Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Friday Drinks. And this is bound to be one of our more exciting ones. We've got his worship here and looking dapper as always. I've always known you to be wearing suits and yeah.
It's part of the overalls of the job.
Of the job.
It's the uniform.
The straight jacket.
The straight jacket. What can you do?
Looking lovely. Thank you very much for coming here. It's a lovely afternoon in Harare. The weather's just great. It's autumn, but it feels like summer.
Yeah, it's quite warm.
Yeah.
I envy you. I look overdressed for a Friday afternoon.
Well, thanks to Visa,
Yeah.
who are still our sponsors. As you can see, I'm still wearing the T-shirt. Not that it's a bother, but I love it. And thank you very much, Visa, for joining us and for sponsoring this show. We've got the Twitter Space audience joining us as well, so that we know, but we'll focus more on the cameras because that's where everybody is watching and they can see you.
Okay.
But thank you very much. So we decided that we're going to kick alcohol off the bar and we're going to have some Malawi Shanti.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm quite the party pooper. I don't mind people drinking at all.
Okay.
It's just that I have too many responsibilities.
All right, fantastic. We don't want him drunk, so I'm gonna make him a Malawi Shanti, and we can start the show.
Sure.
While we do that, George and Rufaro, maybe you can tell us what you guys are drinking.
I don't know if the camera can see me, but I bought myself a set of wine glasses today. I was gonna have some red wine, but somehow between the fridge and my desk, I waylaid myself, and I'm back to the usual Tusker malt.
Are you that cheap, George? And Rufaro? Oh, that's good. That's most welcome. So I assume you're sober?
Literally, but not.
Okay, all right. Just another hour, then you can run away.
Drown yourself.
Indeed.
Yeah. How's the weather in Durban? Sorry?
It's quite nippy.
All right.
Down here. Yeah. So I envy you. I think that it's a bright sunny day over there.
Okay. Fantastic. Maybe, George, you can just start off with the structure of the show and what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, happy to do that. We are getting your YouTube feed, and I must say, his worship, it just sounds funny to call Jacob his worship, but anyway, his worship is looking definitely.
Thank you.
I can't believe you've influenced him to have a pink drink with you. Were you even given a choice, your worship?
Yeah, I was. I then told him that I don't drink. Was it unfortunately or tragically? I don't know which is which.
Fortunately.
So the city requires a sober head, so to speak. Yeah.
So, thanks, Tinashe. We are going to divide the show in two broad segments. We will have the initial segment in the sort of traditional Friday Drinks style, where we will interact with the mayor in studio and remotely between Tinashe, myself, and Rufaro. Just so we can get through some of the questions we've prepared and some of the questions that audience have asked us to ask. We will then open up the Twitter space at around 45 minutes or an hour from now to allow the audience to participate. I'd just like to remind everybody that Friday Drinks is primarily a business show. So we'd like to keep the discussion leaning as much towards business and the economy as possible. And I know we are in a very exciting period leading up to elections, and I know we all have our shall I say party sympathies and party preferences. May I just ask that we stay away from those this afternoon, because that's not what we're trying to achieve. There are several other platforms in which we can have lots of political party fun and excitement. So if that's all right for everybody, and if Tinashe has finished preparing a pink drink.
Yes, we have.
It's quite lovely.
We'll go.
Did you hear that, George?
Sorry, I didn't.
I was saying it's quite lovely.
Yeah, look. Take your word for it. And if I may say, since I last met you, you've become a politician, so I'll take it with a pinch of salt.
It's drama.
More like a bucket of salt.
He needs the sugar.
Yeah, give him more. So, Your Worship.
Yes.
I'd like to get maybe some of the harder stuff out of the way.
Sure.
And we'll make our way to some of the easier topics and more pleasant topics.
Perfect.
As the afternoon unfolds.
It's perfect.
And where I'd like to begin is, we've seen you on the news a lot. We've seen you speaking a lot about the challenges you have running the city because of interference from the minister, because of, shall I say, the legislative infrastructure around the administration of local government in our country.
Yes.
And I know you're dying to talk about that, but I'm going to swivel away from that and say, well, okay, having said that, we've also seen a lot of issues within the city.
Yes.
And its administration.
Yes.
That don't seem to be right. I mean, to say the very least.
Yeah, sure.
We continuously read about corruption scandals. We continuously read about land scandals. We know the council hasn't produced audited accounts probably since God was a boy. Coast work.
2019.
Workers,
2019.
etc.
Yeah.
The list is endless.
Sure.
Two questions. To what extent is that affecting the council service delivery?
Mm-hmm.
And part B, what are you doing about it? Because, I'm just sitting there as an outsider. I hear you. You blame it. Mm-hmm. You blame central government. You blame the legislative infrastructure. But you've got these major in-house problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I hear you. I quite agree with you that we have huge problems. Corruption in the city, corruption in society is endemic. It is one of the major costs of doing business in Harare and in Zimbabwe in particular. And I'll be the first to say that we need to deal with systemic corruption. We have all kinds of corruption. You have the service provision corruption, the little corruption. You want to get something done, you have to give this person $5, $10 to jump the queue, to get things that they normally should be doing anyway. You get to pay. In many ways, that's probably the easier to eradicate, but the more irritating and more pervasive in nature, because it's done at shop floor level, it's difficult to detect and requires a certain level of desperation on the end user and also some cooperation from the end user. Then there is mega corruption, the corruption of huge deals, inflated contracts, ill-gotten contracts, prices that are connived, people who get contracts to do things and are unable to do the work. And you mentioned the issue of the audit. The last audit we did was in 2019 when we had a system. And for some strange reason, senior management connived and influenced the councillors to chase away the company that was doing the audit because it had raised its license fee from 35,000 to 75,000. The irony is that they brought in a system which ended up costing the city, it's called the SAGE system, which ended up costing the city over 300,000 US dollars in licenses, but it failed to produce an audit. And that was not enough. Just recently, management, as you know, councillors were kept out of the tender process through the Procurement Act.
But let's, Your Worship, let's do this systemically. The first thing is we mean an external audit. Where an external audit, any of the big 4 or 5 or 6 come into the council, there's nothing to stop you from doing that. The law requires it, and this was last done, we don't know when. So just an audit, so that we know whether it's qualified or unqualified, it's secondary.
Yeah, well,
but just to get, are you saying that it's difficult to get auditors to come into?
No, the auditors will come because the Auditor General comes by law.
That's different. That's Auditor General. But can we get an external auditor to come in and look at the books?
Well, I'll check it with the law whether we are allowed to contract, your Kudengas or your Deloitte and stuff. But as a public entity, we are required by law to get an audit, and then the Auditor General is the one who comes and audits us. And the last time that we produced those set of audits was in 2019, where we had a BRQ system that used to work. For now, because of the lack of that system, we have been unable to produce an audit, and that is a very bad and tragic.
So how can you preside over, I mean, you're a professional, how can you preside over such affairs?
Yeah, but that's,
cannot even audit.
Yeah, that's why I want to put a stop to it. I'm a lawyer, a registered lawyer. I'll tell you what happened from 2019. The government connived to chase me out of the mayor seat. So I was not there 2019, was not there 2020. Actually, 2020 I was in prison. Then 2021 I was being continuously suspended. So when I came back, I made it my priority that.
But why is it about you? Shouldn't it be about the system?
It should be about the
council.
system.
So we don't want it to be about you.
Yeah.
As your worship, but we want it to be from a system perspective. Even with you in jail, an audit must happen.
Yeah, that's the natural thing because there's an accounting officer. But but then again, I'll put up my hand and say that sometimes in public entities, people have little appetite to be audited, and if there's no push from the residents, no push from someone at the top as the mayor, you will get a situation where any excuse and every excuse not to audit.
But by law, are we not supposed to be audited by law?
By law, we are. We are supposed to be audited.
So are you saying that the council is breaching the law?
Yes, by not being audited, the council is breaching the law.
So who's accountable?
We are accountable.
Who?
The mayor and the council and the town clerk. So what we have is that the accounting officer is...
So this has nothing to do with politics? It has everything to do with the officers who are holding office at the present moment.
Yeah, so...
Who have allowed the situation to happen where the council is not
Yes,
audited.
that is nothing...
So if you're admitting that, why should business then pay their rates?
Well, what we should do, it becomes a chicken and egg situation.
But there's something that you have total control over.
Yeah, that's why I'm taking steps to rectify it. What we need to do is that what I did when I was explaining to you is that there was a contract that's coming in to do an ERP, an enterprise resource package, which was going to cost the city 57 million US over a period of 5 years. We don't have that.
You're saying an ERP was going to cost you 57 million?
57 million US.
US dollars?
Yes.
What sort of ERP is that?
Some ERP which was done by our technical committee It's called Munosoft. I'm told that it's operating in South Africa in over 15 municipalities.
57 million. Okay. How much revenue does the council have?
It doesn't have that kind of money.
So why would that even be conceivable? That the council can actually sit?
That's the corruption I'm talking about. Remember.
Are you saying that there's a council mafia?
Yes, there is the council mafia.
Who is the council mafia?
The council mafia is contained in the bureaucracy. What happened? Let me give you the genesis of procurement.
Okay.
Procurement Act, the one that is currently in place, took out councillors, like the political councillors, outside the procurement process. The conventional wisdom was that councillors, one, are not educated, two, they are not knowledgeable, three, they will be corrupt. But what has happened is that it has become an Alice in Wonderland scenario. The management that was supposed to be knowledgeable, not corrupt, and reasonable sit in what they call technical committees and financial committees. They come up with what they call specifications for the contract. These specifications, we as councillors cannot interfere in the process for fear of violating the Procurement Act, which has criminal penalties for doing that. This was passed by Parliament. They sit as a technical committee, they say these are the specs that we want. They go out, put out a tender, they award the company gives you the bill and says 57 million. The process jumps from what you call it, the procurement authority called the PA, straight to PRAS, which is housed in the president's office. Now that PRAS is the one which then agrees or disagrees with the recommendations. And our own staff, our technical and the IT department had recommended this software, which was going to cost us 57 million US dollars. Thankfully, we objected as council to say we had budgeted 500,000 due to the historical record of the package that we used to have, and that managed to produce an audit. And therefore, we cannot go back to the residents for a supplementary budget to ask for 57 million US dollars. And we wrote a letter.
If the city doesn't have an ERP or an accounting package, how are you accounting for residents' rates and fees that we're paying for? What's actually happening?
What's actually happening is that the process becomes manual, old school accounting, which is prone to leakages and abuse because it then becomes very manual, and you have to go back to systems that we used pre-systems era or pre-computer era, and that then has a lot of abuses and has got delays. What we need to have at the current moment and desperately is to get the ERP up and running. And what we have done is that, firstly, the Auditor General recommended that we put back the system that we had, which used to operate. Secondly, I was having a meeting with my procurement guys and the finance director this morning because I went to meet PRAS, and they gave us a letter telling us that they've cancelled. They've agreed with me and my councillors that we cannot afford the 57 million US contract, and they agreed to cancel. There's a committee called the SPOC, which is chaired by the Attorney General, and they agreed with the decision of the council to cancel that 57 million US contract. Then the question is, what then do you do? We had a system that allowed us to have an audit. We had a quarrel with it, and all we need to do is to get that system. And there's also a system that is being pioneered by government called LADS, that's being done by HIT, which is an accounting package. It has to adapt and to grow to be able to manage a city the size of Harare. But some synergies can be worked out so that at least at the very most this year, we will then be able to...
What's happening in Marondera? Is this...
May I come in here tonight?
Yeah, sure.
His worship. Your worship.
Yes.
I presume because your job is as the mayor is part-time, I presume you still have your law firm?
Yes, I have my law firm. I'm ceremonial. I'm the only mayor in Southern Africa or in Africa who is managing a 3 million citizen on a ceremonial basis.
Yes. I presume you still have your practice and you've got some sort of manager.
Yes,
who looks after the financial affairs
yes.
of your law firm.
Yes, yes, yes.
Would you have given your manager the amount of time we've allowed you on this show to explain in any number of words and any floweriness of language why they have not produced books of account for 4 years?
Oh, they fired them in less time. And that is what you want to do. I came from private sector, like you say. Some of the excuses that I find in public bodies are also gobbledygook to me or amaze me every day. You cannot fire. I can tell you that the IT person, the person whom we pay, and his whole department, we've got one of the biggest IT departments in the country as a city. But one, we have we have hardly any functioning internet. We hardly are able to communicate with the residents on email about the status of their accounts. A person cannot enter their address or into a system sitting at a phone to check on their property rates. You know, basic things that we have taken for granted that you do on EcoCash or some of these things.
So, Your Worship, you know how you're coming across. You're actually telling us that the council is worse than we think. That's the first thing.
And we mustn't pay our rates.
And we must not actually pay our rates because you're not in control. No one is in control.
Well, the situation is that for us, this is a candid platform.
Exactly.
This is our city. I'm not here to sugarcoat what's happening. I was elected by the residents to be able to point out the flaws that are there. I do have the solutions myself. The reason why I'm painting...
But you can't implement them.
Well,
because you have no control.
We can implement...
Why haven't you done so in the last 4 years?
Well, in the last 4 years, I explained to you...
But it shouldn't be about you, remember?
Yeah.
Because you're now making it about you. That if you're in jail, then nothing happens. So what happens if tomorrow...
we have to create a system.
The system itself must correct itself.
But a system begins by people who move to create the system. What we need to do, the reason is we need to put people who can identify a fault in the system. Identify the fault in the system, and then we put the remedies in the system. I sincerely believe I'm not going to be a mayor forever, okay? I also want to be a mayor and move on to other things. I think I'm writing a story for my life, and that story is not stuck at one place. But I do believe I've worked in many organizations. I've worked for international organizations. I've worked for US organizations. I've worked for local organizations. I've worked for the biggest law firms in the country. I know what I'm talking about, and I know the solutions.
So tell us what you can do in the next 4 months that you haven't been able to do in the last 4 years that can change the system.
Okay. What I'll be able to do in the next 4 months, it's one, we've been able, first of all, to stop people from getting $57 million US from the residents. Two, we are going to have an ERP system in the shortest possible time within the next 2 weeks. I personally had to meet...
That's impossible.
That's possible. I will tell you how.
The city, the nature of the city, to implement an ERP in 2 weeks is...
No. We remember...
That would be world beating.
Yeah, but remember, we had a system before.
Okay, so you're just reverting to that.
Yes, we're simply reverting back to that system. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. We are going back to that system as a bridging ERP. When we go back to that system, it will then, because it was in existence from 2011 to 2019 when people had a dispute over the license fee. If you revert back to that system, then we've secured the accounting. And then once you do that, you then work out the specifications of the other modules that you want.
Who's going to implement this? Surely it's not you. Who's the person on the...
We are going to get an IT person. I think as I'm speaking now, the town clerk has issued a suspension to the hopeless IT person that we had, and we should be getting an IT person and the finance department is geared to implement that. The contractor whom we were working with is also the contractor that's working with Bulawayo City Council and who's also working with Zinwa as an entity. And they are quite familiar with the Zimbabwean terrain. They were in the city council before, and they should then be able to create that bridging ERP so that at least we have a system that can communicate with the ratepayers, can communicate with the other departments, and allow for us to have auditable accounts as per the recommendations of the Auditor General.
Okay, I think we can move on from there.
Okay.
George?
Let's move on. Okay, yeah, look, I think in the preamble to the conversation, George mentioned the politics, but I also think that what's quite clear is that the way this is run is dysfunctional, and in many ways, the mayor is working, with his hands. So perhaps it's not productive to go into the weeds of why certain things aren't working. I think it's interesting to explore, what a functional city would, how it would be structured. If it was up to the mayor to come up with a structure for the city of Harare that would actually best serve its residents and work, what would it look like? We know that the current structure has serious issues and doesn't work.
Yes.
So perhaps, maybe the mayor can share with us his thinking. It was up to him. If you had a blank piece of paper and you had all the authority that in the world, how would the city of Harare actually set up and function?
Yeah, well, first of all, that's a very good question. And I'll try to be as brief as I can be and as detailed as I can be. First of all, we need the executive mayor back. This is the second biggest budget in the country after government. We are almost the second biggest employer after government. I've got 10,000 employees and increasing. I've got the biggest mechanical plant, Morton Jeffrey. We used to have power stations. I have 300,000 school pupils in school. I have maternity clinics that give birth to 3,000 babies a month. I have a road network that's second to none in the country. I have residents, clinics, over 50 clinics, and so forth. The biggest fire, the brigade or emergency response setup in the whole country. So you need an executive mayor, and my budget is huge. It's probably the second biggest budget. So you cannot run, as I'm doing, this city on a part-time basis, where in the morning I'm arguing a divorce case, in the afternoon I'm trying to deliver 500 megaliters of water every day to the residents. I'm trying to help people. You are trying to prevent treatable diseases. You are trying to move sewage. You are trying to earn income.
But Mayor, why are you making it about yourself?
No. It's the office.
But even the office, whether it's an executive mayor or not, it shouldn't matter.
It
even
matters
ceremonial.
because there is no other city. Because you see, we cannot reinvent the wheel. All other cities in Africa are managed by executive mayors because it is a management issue. Decisions have to be made within a period. Not only do you need executive mayors, you also need executive chairpersons. That is, the one who is in charge of health must be knowledgeable about health issues. Finance, knowledgeable about finance issues. It must be run the way it's, you would run your Cape Town, you'd run your Joburg with the various MECs.
But I can put it up to you that even if Cape Town was managed on a ceremonial mayoral position, it will still run well because of processes and systems. We want to move away from the individual or from the office. Because frankly, it shouldn't matter.
It should matter. You cannot, because what happens is that there are leakages. You need somebody to be full-time on the job.
But they can
Because
be corrupted. An individual can be corrupted.
Yeah, but you then deal with the corruption. But what you need to be, it's like running a company as big as Delta with a ceremonial director and say it's going to work. It's not going to work. You can't run ZESA like with a ceremonial chief executive. It's not going to work. Systems are developed for you to be able to deliver efficiently. And it's a correct criticism to say that a system is not working. And let's move on to a system that is working across Africa, across the world. This is a system that works.
Okay, George, come in.
Can we move on now, gentlemen?
Yep.
I sense we are getting down a rabbit hole, and very interesting that the mayor made some references to Alice in Wonderland earlier on. I suspect we shall be seeing the Wizard of Oz and other characters popping out.
Okay, let's come back to the rules.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, let's move away a little bit from the administration and let's move on to issues of funding and investment. I'm sitting in Nairobi, as I've said over the past few weeks, a city that has grown phenomenally over the last couple of decades. I have, during the past few weeks, had the opportunity to interact with some people involved in the management of the city of Nairobi and in strategic planning. And a phrase I heard over and over again was horizontal infrastructure, which I've learned refers to roads, sewer, water, etc. Literally horizontal infrastructure, the infrastructure that runs along the ground. And strategically, this city, the city of Nairobi, a generation ago, took the decision to invest in horizontal infrastructure. And once there had been investment in horizontal infrastructure, vertical infrastructure, that is to say buildings, followed.
Yes.
And when vertical infrastructure came, more investment followed.
Yes.
Sitting in my apartment right now, and as I look out of the window, I see a building with Sanlam on it, I see a building with Radisson on it, a building with Oracle, a building with Microsoft, you name it. The big names of the world are here.
Yes.
When I compare in the city of my birth, I see there's been no new horizontal infrastructure for 43 years. I look around and say, what has council built since 1980?
That's an exaggeration.
And I can point.
Anyway, we'll let.
Look, what have they built? We can point to a few clinics, a few schools, one or two road expansions like Samora Machel and actually Samora Machel. I don't know what.
We have to deal with. I hear your question.
A person who emigrated at independence, if they came back to Harare today, would use the same map they had and they'd still find their way around the city.
They'll not get lost.
What's the impediment?
Look, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but what we did is, remember, let me talk about electricity. Remember, we used to have a thermal power station as the seat of Harare, which was taken over by ZESA for no payment. We used to produce an installed capacity of 110 megawatts. ZESA took it and almost mothballed it. It's producing 0 or 15 megawatts per day. We used to have the cheapest electricity, the second cheapest electricity after Blaawaya. Our electricity was at 53 cents. Blaawaya was at 27 cents. ZESA took it and they took the whole cabling, the over 200 buildings, the office that they are sitting in opposite Jameson Hotel was built by the city and the other cities. So they took that revenue head and immediately the day they took it, they started sending us a bill for electricity when they took it for free. I've been negotiating with the people at ZESA and I've said it in council. Let's have our power station back. Let's have our buildings back. And we'll produce electricity for our people and we'll sell it. We used to have what we called the street lights levy, which they took and changed it into the raw electrification levy. But they left me with the duty to keep the street lights on. Not only was that taken, you remember what we call road user fees, vehicle registration fees. I had a quarrel with Zinara. It was again taken by Zinara. We had one of the longest road networks in Africa in 2009 when Zinara was constructed. We had a road network longer than the road network which was in DRC, which was in Malawi. And that had been built by the residents of Harare. Enter Zinara, central government. They took user fees. I am arguing that there are 800,000 cars in the streets of Harare. Statutorily, they are all supposed to pay $20 per day. That gives us $64 million per annum. Guess what? They only remit $1.4 million to $2 million back to the city of Harare to do the road network and to repair the road network. And the 62 million goes to God knows where. There's fuel levy. All this money.
So while it's clear,
yes,
George,
I am, but
George,
it's revenue that I'm supposed to use to build the roads, to provide energy, to provide water.
Let me put it in a different way. I think we have talked about revenue and expenditure and how little control you have over that. That's very clear.
It's being stolen, yeah.
Yeah, that's very clear. But I think what George is talking about, for example, is certain neighborhoods. So, for example, Avondale has been made into a commercial zone. But you've limited the number of floors that can be built to 2. Why not 10 or 18? Right? Because if you do that and you allow developers, because clearly there's a limit to what you can do, right? From controlling the revenue and the expenditure. But from the law, your councillors, for example, could turn Sem Levy or Bardal or whichever neighborhood or whichever zone
That's what we're doing.
into 10, 20, whatever.
No.
And that's actually an increase of revenue for you.
Oh, that I can agree with.
So the law is in your hands.
Yeah.
You can change the law yesterday.
Yes.
Why hasn't it happened?
Well,
and why 2 floors for Avondale as a zone, for
it
example?
beats me as well. Look, what I can do, I listened to your other show.
Yeah.
I quite agree with you. Densification is the way to go. Higher is the way to go. You can't have a city that is as short as its mayor. Where when I'm standing short as I am, I can see the top of a roof. You have a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not the tallest of individuals around. I have a problem that in Chinoy.
So what do we need to do to change that?
What I need to do is when I listened to your talk, your developers and other people can present us with papers that justify. Because remember...
No, you don't need a justification. If tomorrow you just pass the law that says there's no limit to how tall the building should be.
Our planners, you see, the challenge that we have, sometimes we have old school planners. And what they will be telling you, it's very interesting because we are having a debate. I won't mention names. There's a developer who wants to do 10 stories in a neighborhood.
Yes.
Then I was asking my engineers, because the matter then came to my office because the government, the developer, and my guys got stuck on giving the permission to do the 10 stories. The permission now is for the developer to do 4 stories. And then the thing came to me. And then I said, look, I'm a lawyer. But everywhere I go in the world, the buildings seem to be taller. And I don't understand why our buildings in Harare have to be shorter. What are we trying? What height? Are we afraid that the presidential helicopter will collide with the building? What is it? Surely it should be able to fly higher than 10 stories. And I quite agree with you. And why I need papers is also I need a counter view to be able to have something on record in my council so that I don't appear to have thumb-sucked a figure. But if it was up to me alone and my councillors, to place that vote would not be a problem at all.
Your Worship, you're opening up yourself to corruption. Because when you are approving, if somebody wants 10 floors and then they have to come to your office, we don't want to come to your office.
Yes, I don't want.
Ideally, what should happen is your council and your councillors, and this comes to another question that we had on: do you have a research division? Because it shouldn't come from the developers. Your own economics and investment division should come to you and actually tell you that actually for these particular zones, let's increase it. Because when you do so, then the developer doesn't need to come to your office. And this is what we're trying to get away from.
Yeah.
Your office is not special.
See what has happened.
It should be processes and systems.
You know what has happened is that the younger generation of Zimbabweans, like yourself and everybody else, you have been exposed to other worlds. But what has happened with Zimbabweans is that they forget that they left an infrastructure that is and institutions that are dinosaur in nature. The person who got into that job in 1983 is still there as the head planner. If you ask them, when did they get employed? 1983, 1984, that's when they walked into council or walked into government. I want you to come to a workshop of council and a workshop of government. Take a picture of the people who will be there. If
Dinosaurs.
If you see me sitting at a government meeting, you will think I'm supposed to be giving water to people and serving them and giving them sweets, not participating in the meeting.
Okay.
So what we need is to retool and reskill our institutions at a technocratic level. The political level, it's fine because there's been natural evolution.
Yes.
The old guys get voted out, new guys get voted in every 5 years.
Yeah.
So you have changed there. But in Zimbabwe, we still have the system where I, as the mayor, I'm giving 50-year service awards to employees. I was signing them. 30-year, I was saying over.
So, okay, let me get this correct. You're saying, because these are laws, this has nothing to do with the city council, the infrastructure itself, the structures within the city.
Yeah, laws are generated by people.
By people?
Yes, who work in the city.
But the laws are passed by our councillors.
Yes, but they.
And we vote these councillors.
Yes.
Right? And we're saying you preside over an institution where tomorrow you can decide that the zones should be 20, 30 floors.
Yeah, I can.
Why do we need some planner?
Okay, that's why the law is designed this way. For us to redesignate Avondale or any other area, we have to follow the law. And what we do is we come up with a plan on how we are going to develop it, sponsored by the private sector or individuals who sponsor it. They then demarcate the area where they want to change the local development plan. Normally banks and other wealthy individuals do the sponsoring, and they do that with certain developments in mind. And then we follow.
Can I ask you something that's also very personal to me, which is the city center? Rejuvenation of the city center. We understand that the bylaws are such that it has to be commercial, but we can't have apartments within the city center.
We have to have multi-purpose city center.
Why can't we have
We
this?
have to do that.
So you seem to know this.
I know these things.
So,
but I'm telling you the constraints, what do you call it? Why I'm highlighting you?
Because you know what you're saying with your constraints. You're actually telling us that perhaps we should vote someone else.
No, well, you
without the constraints.
No. The constraints The constraints are not in my mind.
Okay, they are real.
They are real constraints. It's not like I go in there and I start arresting myself with the logistical problems.
Yeah.
You vote someone else, they might not even know that is the constraint that is there. Okay. The question that I have is, why do we have a city that behaves like it's in a war zone? We have a city where people rush to get in at 8 and rush to get out at 5, as if there is a curfew. These cities were designed in that manner to keep away
colonial
to keep away the Africans safe and create a no man's land, which is a buffer zone where they will be able to see you if you are coming at a time that you're not supposed to come. I do agree with you that most of our buildings have to be multi-purpose, and the highlight The illustration of that was the COVID era. Because our cities were so designed that you have to run away from them. Once you are shut away from the city, you can't go back to your work. But if, for example, Joina City had apartments from the 12th floor to the 15th floor, then offices and banks and gyms and blah, blah, blah at the bottom, it meant that people could have continued working in Joina City without interrupting the system. And also, we cannot have a housing shortage when most of the floors are now vacant. Because businesses do not see the reason of having their offices above the 8th floor and beyond. So we need to come up with...
So what would it take to make the city center a special economic zone? What would it take? Is it within the councillor's purview?
It's partly the law, the way our law works. Part of it can be initiated from council. It can be initiated from
what
government.
do we need to do to initiate
What we need
that?
to do is we find a sponsor. We look at what they do is the law requires us to identify an area. And then you change the local area, what they call a local area development plan, which is supposed to be changed every 5 years in terms of the law. You find a sponsor. So one of the sponsors, because it's an expensive exercise, is involving redrawing, landscaping, interviews, and so forth. One of the sponsors, be it a property company, a bank, or a number of sponsors, sponsor that. Then you start planning and zoning.
But the questions that we're getting is, all the developers have tried this.
No, well,
but the response from the council has been...
What I would want to do is that any developer who has tried this and has met problems or bureaucratic problems with the office, they should come directly to my office.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
No, for now...
We're trying to avoid coming to you.
Oh, but I'm the people's mayor.
No.
Where do you want to go?
We want to go through proper structures. We must never know you.
No. What I want to do is for them to highlight to me the obstacles that are there in the system. So that when the obstacles are highlighted, I can then institute the appropriate reforms to then create the system you are talking about.
Fantastic.
So that, but if I don't know what are the logistical and bureaucratic problems, I might not be able to institute the reforms that are required. I'm happy to work in the background. I'm happy to just get people to know me by my portraits like everyone else. But for now, they might have to approach me as I am willing and able and capable to understand the issues that they're trying to raise.
All right. Our time is... we've done enough. I think we need to open it up to Twitter space. But I will give this time to George. Do you have any questions, or Faro?
So should we pay our rates then?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Well, that's a different. That's a different, an interesting question, because as it is, it's failing. Right now, if we stop paying our rates, in what direction is that going to move the needle?
Collapses.
Is the city less likely to fail if they are getting absolutely no revenue from residents, or are we better off allowing them to hobble along with what they're getting from residents as it is?
No, but I mean, what you and the mayor would have us believe is that they have no control.
Oh.
So
they don't have zero control.
Who are we giving this money to? Who's in charge of it? I mean,
so on the spectrum of control, they're not at 0%, but they for sure are not at 100%.
Yeah.
In fact, I will make the case that they're probably somewhere between 20 and 30%.
Okay.
And the question is, do you want to run the experiment where, because the little that they're actually getting from residents today affords them some of that 20 to 30% that they have. And if we woke up tomorrow and started paying rates, we would be moving them closer to zero. Is that an experiment that we want to run?
No, we can't do that.
So it's okay. So you accept that they've got no control.
George and Rufaro?
Put money into this pot that nobody controls.
George and Rufaro, can you hear me?
It's a bad situation. The question is, do you want to take a set of actions that's going to make it worse, or do you want to take a set of actions
Ask Jama to improve it.
The status quo is, residents are paying rates into a private system.
Yeah.
Will things improve if we stop paying rates? I think that's the question that we should ask.
George, can you hear me?
Things are going to get better if you stop paying rates.
No, they're not.
And are you going to be better off?
Gentlemen.
Yeah. Wangi Express, I've allowed you to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, let's allow them to speak and then we can get notes.
Hi George, how are you?
Let me make you another one.
Oh,
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. From the little that I've heard,
So you just listen in and then ask Jama to include me.
Well, I had some idea that it's bad, but not to this extent. And just to give you some rough idea. So I've done some local government work in my life, and the way this is meant to work is there's what is called the accountability cycle for the municipality, right? And it starts off by them developing what is called an integrated development plan for the municipal, for the area, for Harare. But before you even get to developing it, you need to form, the best term that I can use is focus groups, where you consult with like property developers and whatever, you get their inputs, and their inputs are then collated and put into that integrated development plan, right? And then from there, you then come up with what is called the service delivery and budget implementation plan, which then eventually translates into figures and whatever. I heard you speaking about Nairobi growing laterally before it started growing vertically. That is the kind of process that would have happened. So at some point, someone would have thought, okay, we've got the city of Nairobi. How do we want Nairobi to play out in the next 5 years? These integrated development plans are normally for a 5-year period. So, and then that's when the planning starts going into it. But from the mayor's side, I don't think there's anything like that. There is no system whatsoever leading up to them not even having an accounting system. So all I'm just getting is they don't have anything. And of all the things that they could achieve, it doesn't seem like they can point to just one thing that they have done within their tenure as the people charged with the governance of the city. I mean, he's talking about a lot of things. I mean, for example, he wants to get involved in procurement and all that. But best practice from my work and from what I've learned is that there are bid adjudication committees, and the council, which acts like a board, is the one that evaluates the performance of those who are running those tasks. So he shouldn't be involved in that.
How much is being contributed by the Harare happens? All the councils in Zimbabwe, they have remitted their money to, for the reason being that we all know the problems that are associated with cash system, right? Or the risks that are affected by the cash system. The cash system allows people to steal. That is where theft and even injuries of workers is prevalent, because you are saying you are receiving cash each and every day. What problem does it have? And the like. So the cash system have to be discontinued. Everything now have to be digitized. The council must have power to buy the enterprise's resource planning software, of which by the end of the day, if they do that, they record their own revenue, and whenever they have recorded the revenue, it's easy to trace for auditors. But when you don't have such, you only have got a cash system. How can the auditors trace? You are giving the auditors the difficult task to do, because let me say, from my own knowledge and what I have done, I will need the receipts. I will need everything concerning revenue. I will need also to calculate the VAT, all right, the value-added tax that are being paid, or in terms of rates, in terms of other things, right? And except to those things, that are exempt. So how I get could you maybe just wrap up? Because we need to keep it. Other people's choice. Thank you. And I just want to say, how would it be easy for an auditor to trace VAT, the revenues, the rates as well? Because remember, you want to compare the rates that were collected and the rates per each and every ratepayer. So in order for you to need that, you need as well you need the approval rates or the new pricing system that is going to be updated each and every year from the council's meeting. So if you don't have that, then it is difficult for an auditor to come and audit, because actually he knows that you don't have enough records. That is a limitation of scope on behalf of the auditors. So to me, what I would do, I just want to say this. I would just disclaim all the books because there is no enough information for the audit.
Can you speak?
Okay.
You're gonna have to use your.
The champion there, I totally understand him. He's our auditor, man. This guy, he audits us and everything. But yeah, it's quite refreshing to see that we have the mayor, and I'm also really here to also listen to the mayor speaking. And I definitely want to agree with him in terms of the non-executiveness of the mayor of Harare. The main problem which I see, which I think it's because of the tariffs that we make our citizens pay. They are not cost reflective, and if we were to look at setting up a cost reflective tariff in terms of service delivery, I think we would see improvements. There could be talk of developers who would want to come in and make developments in a city, but really that talk might actually end up not being coming to fruition. Why? Because there wouldn't be anything on the ground to actually invest on. If you are trying to build, let's say, a block of flats in an area where there is no provision of running water, where there is no provision of sewer network, where there is no sanitation, how do you then attract development in such an area? So you're going to have a backbone of network, and I like the idea or the examples of actually jurisdiction in terms of municipalities in South Africa. If a comparison was to be made with those, I think it would really help in terms of having those IDPs in place, having service delivery structures. I mean, a municipality like Harare, it would have 2,000 pieces of legislation that it has to comply with. Now, if you look at that and you have a non-executive mayor, the mayor cannot hire or fire the town clerk. The mayor cannot hire and fire the heads of department. Now, how does this politician, he is actually at the mercy of the administrators who are the town clerk, the heads of administration, and that just gives this particular mayor no power at all to act and to do anything. All he can do actually is to pass on a budget which he also doesn't have control over, a budget which even in the first instance is not adequate. I heard the brother speaking of the division of revenue. I mean, very much applicable in the South African setup, the division of revenue. You would have equitable share, you would have allocations from the national fiscus, and we don't see that happening in Harare. We actually see that Zinara, which operates a very small margin or percentage of the road network, because if you were to compare the city of Harare road network and that which is run by Zinara, you would find out that the mayor of Harare has got a much longer, in terms of squareage, in terms of mileage, he's got a much longer road network, and yet he's only getting a pouch remittance from Zinara, or at most times he doesn't receive anything. So it leaves this mayor as very powerless in terms of what can he actually do in terms of maintaining a road network, of which you need such infrastructure, which I call the backbone network, for you to have a proper, a running city, a functional city which can attract investment. The mayor spoke about electricity.
I'm sorry, I want you to round up so we can get the map back on.
Yeah.
All right, no, we can get the map back on. Thank you.
Yeah. So you can
Thank you,
just
Said.
come in.
Jay, I see you. I will give you a
George,
chance to speak later.
George, can you allow the mayor to just respond to what
that's what
everybody
I'm doing.
said?
That's what I'm doing now, Tinashe.
All right, fantastic. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much.
So Jay, we'll give you a chance a bit later. Your worships, welcome back.
Thank you.
I think you caught the last bit of those contributions from our audience. And I think you would have picked up that the gist really picks up from where we left off, which is what is within the council's control that the council can do to make Harare a better city, and what is it doing?
Okay, what we are doing, remember, when I say I'm powerless, I don't mean me personally. It's you, the residents, who put me in place. And if you put me in place and the office is straight-jacketed, then it is you, the residents, who are rendered powerless. It is not me as a person. Because what happens is you put me there to be able to deliver on a certain set of objectives. So when I tell you the constraints of the office that you have put me in, it is not a reflection of me wanting more power, but me alerting the citizens who will have put me in place to do a certain task that there are some systems that are interfering with your sovereign power. And therefore, when we want you to deal with it, it is to enable to deliver services effectively to you. But what we do control, like I highlighted earlier, we have got the potential of delivering 400 megaliters of water per day, which we do. We have got an installed capacity of 1,000 megaliters per day, and we need to get to 900 megaliters per day to be able to give everyone water. We've instituted new technology. We've put chlorine dioxide generators at Mountain Jeffrey to give us cleaner, safer water and cheaper water. And that is part of the things that we are doing in terms of water delivery. Then we have to deal with issues of health. We are the backbone of the vaccination program in the city. We are the backbone of the ARV program in the city. We were the backbone of the COVID fighting effort and many other efforts. Not only that, we also deliver 2,000 babies per month for the whole of Harare, if not the whole country. And we deliver 2,300 babies using a network of 13 polyclinics. We have the fire brigade that responds to the fires. We have the road network that we're talking about, which is dilapidated, but we are not getting revenue. And then we do the planning for the city. And then, of course, part of the other job is the sewer, the moving of sewer to the treatment plants, which we have to do. We've got an installed capacity of 300 megaliters, though we need to move about 500 megaliters of waste. So there's a lot that a city has to do and is doing. We highlight what are the challenges in order for us to be better and to give you something that allows you to live in a modern city. But a lot gets to be done. We run one of the biggest refuse collection operations. We need about 45 compactors. We need about 20 tipper trucks. And of course, we need to get back our Pomona dump site that has been taken. And we move all that. But we need to do more. We need to regularize the city. So these are the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, on a month-to-month basis. But I have a distinct feeling and a viewpoint that we need to do more as the city. We shouldn't highlight the little that we do to the extent that we try to make people accept substandard services. We need to join the digital age where things are obtained as reflex and not as people having to fight for them. And that's where we want to take this council. And we are instituting the reforms that require us to get to that level.
So Your Worship, I mean, a direct question.
Yes.
Does City of Harare have a modern master plan that allows us to become a metropolis like Johannesburg, like Nairobi?
Well,
And have the bylaws been updated to facilitate that master plan?
No, they have not. The master plan has been planned in the working. The issues with the master plan is that we've got a metropolis, remember, and that is not being adequately recognized by the law. Remember, Harare, Chitungwiza, Epworth, Rua, and Norton are in essence one metropolis. But you find that Rua is in another province. Norton is in another province. Then you have Chitungwiza, Epworth, and Harare together. But we provide water. I give 20 megaliters to Chitungwiza, 20 megaliters to Norton, 6 megaliters to Rua, 6 megaliters of water to Epworth per day, which they don't pay for anyway. And I can't shut down the water without a cry that Mafume is sabotaging. But they don't pay. They have not paid. They are in arrears. But Harare has to find the money. The law is not recognizing the metropolis so that we can do an amalgamated master plan that deals with a transport master plan, water master plan, health master plan, education master plan, housing master plan, the whole essence of a master plan. And we need to rapidly do that. The constitution had been designed to make Harare a metropolis, but that has been prevented from happening because I should be the executive mayor or the governor of the whole Harare metropolis because I provide them services anyway. Education, water, roads, health, and everything is provided from Harare. But I have no control over those cities. So we urgently need that. And my coming in this platform and my being expressive as I am, I understand the audience in this platform is more discerning than the audience at a rally. It's an audience of business people. And I've been brutal on council myself, and I've been highlighting and accentuating the faults because I believe on this platform sits people who can provide the solution. So that's why I've been a bit frank and a bit more brutal than I would otherwise be on any other platform. Because another platform, you might want to sugarcoat. But I'm looking at the profiles of the people on Twitter. I'm looking at the profile of the people who listen to those shows. These are the people with the solutions. And I have to give it to you as it is, so that tomorrow morning, you will be able to give me papers, solutions, and ideas that we will immediately be able to implement.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate your kind words for ourselves and our audience, despite our proclivity to enjoy our tipple. Another question for you, Your Worship. Building codes. And again, this is something I feel like is entirely within the control of City of Harare. We maintain building codes from before I was born. You know, we used to call it 19 Gojan.
Yes.
And as a result, our construction is very expensive and probably impractical for our conditions.
Yeah, sure. And unnecessary.
And what is the city doing to simplify our codes and to modernize?
Well, we want to get that technological transfers. I know we've been toying with certain settlements where we've changed and approved their sample houses that have been going up. I know for some of the buildings, the 3-story or 4 stories that are being constructed in Kagui, they are using lesser material, prefabricated materials to build those buildings. I do think that we are ready to try out new technologies. I think the obtaining of permits might be slower than what it ought to be, and we can accelerate that. But I quite agree with you that some of our building requirements are no longer suit for purpose, and they are so costly, and they rely on an understanding of solidity that used to be there previously, and do not take into essence the need for us to build quicker, faster, and more at the present moment. And I quite agree with you that we should be open to proposals. We are going to have changes in our city architects department. There are quite a number of people who are retiring there. We've just obtained, the situation is bad. We have to obtain ministerial approval for us to employ. But thankfully, we did get the ministerial approval after I went to the press complaining about it. It came 5 days later. We have an approval to fill in that division and get probably the adequate skill. But what we might need to do is, because we don't pay that well, we might need to rely on consultants and create a framework where local architect firms, they don't need to be employed by us, but can be able to feed into us. And once it's certified by their bodies that this is feasible in a metropolis like ours, then we adopt it. So we might need to find a way.
Don't you have a facilitator of forums like that? So not just with the local architects, but civil engineers, lawyers,
yes,
everybody.
What we are going to announce shortly is a council advisory board that is going to tap into various stakeholders and create, and we'll try to find somebody to chair it with of professional reputation and widely respected in the business sector, so that we can categorize certain stakeholders and create a platform where they feed in to the policy of council. And that takes me to the bylaws. Our bylaws have not been updated, not because of failure by the council. We have 45 bylaws that we have filed with the Attorney General's office, and they've been parked there for 19 Kochanembe period, which were our efforts to try to update. And we cannot update the bylaws without the Attorney General approving. And the Attorney General, for one reason or the other, has not been quick to approve bylaws that we have put. And this is an inconvenienced a lot of people. That's why we are having cat and mouse games with certain kind of vending stalls. We even have cat and mouse games with the watchtower people who want to give good news papers for free. But because our bylaw, which was done in the 1970s, only allows newspapers to be on a store, our municipal police are getting rid of the good news in heaven. So we have sent updates to our bylaws to see if it's neat, if it's not aesthetically bad and enhances the quality of life in the city. It can happen. We are having problems with mobile kitchens here because our regulations done in the 1950s and 1960s did not envision that a kitchen could be perfectly placed as a caravan. So we play cat and mouse games with those things because the law has not been updated. But we have done the drafts. We've put the...
Let's hear more from Twitter Space. George, are there more questions from Twitter Space?
Just before we go back to Twitter, Tinashe.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Does the council have a dedicated fund to attract?
To attract what? Hello?
Could you say that again, George?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes. A dedicated fund to attract what? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Could you say that again?
Does council have a dedicated fund or department or function to
to attract investment into the city? Or are we relying on central government or central government's efforts in that respect?
What we did is we set up a committee which we call a business committee, whose name we are going to adapt so that it understands its mandate to mean the investment and business committee. Now that committee is manned by a department headed by a business individual, which is supposed to attract investment in the city, and also we need to broaden its mandate, because when it was set up, it was to attract those businesses that could work in joint ventures with the city. But I hear that your proposal is a bit more, is wider. It's that we need to have a deliberate department that markets the city as an investment destination. Like, for example, I quite enjoyed the bidding wars when Amazon wanted to do a headquarters in America, where the cities had to tender and to sell their cities. And I've looked at our stock exchange, and I keep wondering why our biggest companies have not built headquarters or other buildings in Harare, your useful headquarters, Econet, you've got your InScores, you've got your, these companies that are huge and massive. We should find a way of attracting them, because if they build land, or if they build headquarters and they build their operations, that means more people can afford housing, schools, the business opportunities that are, for want of a better word, that are parasitic to those businesses are huge. And I quite get you, and we've been trying.
It's an ecosystem.
It's an ecosystem. I've been trying to cajole my officials that what is needed in the most, you've got companies building, like even Manise, which is building a steel plant 150 kilometers from Harare. That's a Harare investment. Yeah. The executives there and other business there should be able to be housed. Are
you able to give them concessions?
Yes, we'll be able. The people don't come. I'm surprised in this city that when you become the mayor, you, because of the politics that you were talking about earlier, you are the ones who give them licenses, but they don't know the mayor. They don't know. I've been trying to personally visit some of these big churches, big companies, and so forth, to consult the stakeholders that they need. The city is for them. I house their workers. I take their work. I treat their workers. I make the quality of life of their workers what it is. And they should then take an interest in what we are doing as a city, because it then helps the ecosystem. And we need to have these constant interactions with business platforms. That's why I decided to come here, so that people must understand it is their city. It's not J.Mafume city. It's not ZANU-PF city. It's not Triple C city. It is where we live, where we need to enjoy ourselves, where we take our children to school. This is where we make our memories. And we need to make our memories beautiful. And the only way you make your memories beautiful is by improving the environment in tandem with your city fathers.
Let's hear more from Twitter space. George, we don't have much time.
Your worship.
Yes.
In other cities, we've got scenarios in which communities make voluntary supplementary contributions to the city budget and oversee the administration of those. Whether they become precincts, like we have in the context of Santon in Joburg, or whatever other name they give them. Why do we not have such setups in Zimbabwe, in Harare, where communities that are able and willing to contribute more can and improve their own
spaces? We are open to that. I've seen other communities. They are now building, mini sewage treatment plants. They are creating an ambience and an environment within their gated communities. It might not be at a massive scale, as you are, but I know in Mabazua they are even trying to come up with a mini water treatment plant to be able to give water, and a recycling plant, and some have gone to even create their own energy ecosystem. So what we are open to that, and devolution in the context of the constitution envisages a situation like that. So I'm a firm believer that less government might be better at times.
You're a friend to the show then.
Yeah. So because some of it we just become a hindrance to progress, and sometimes we just refuse to do something because we have the power to refuse. And without any rational explanation as to why we are refusing. So I believe that a city is an organic settlement. It's one of the oldest forms of organic organizations by civilization. It predates the nation state by centuries. And a city must be allowed to organically develop as much as possible. Yes, you need to have the development control, the reactive control to avoid excesses and to be able to manage conflict. But a city is a living thing. It's organic, and people will develop a city because they of necessity have to. And we have to play a role of equalizing. And we are welcoming. We are welcoming that if it's being done elsewhere, you can share with us the framework of how we can implement those policies here in a manner that is in keeping with our constitution, our laws, and the aspirations of our people. And in as far much as we can copy best practices, we as a city are willing to implement. Maybe what you need is to expose us to those frameworks so that we are able to implement and adapt them to our lived reality.
Fantastic. George, anyone on Twitter space? We've got 10 minutes. George?
Okay. Taxi driver, I've allowed you to speak. And Padare, I'm trying to allow you, but Padare Nkundeni. But we may do very much. Can you hear me? It is calling taxi driver. All right, thank you very much. And if the mayor can mute his mic, I'm getting feedback. If that's okay. Thank you very much for such a great space. One that is close to heart for me because I work within infrastructure, and I'm going to ask something aligned with that. And thank you, I don't know, your Lord, for availing yourself.
I receive. I can't hear. I think someone is calling.
Okay, we can't hear.
Are there any plans to convert the city into a digital city with a digital twin for Harare? Here I'm talking about, I want to know if I'm traveling to the city center, when is my bus coming in? How many people have interacted with the city? So that we can start to extract that value and market Harare digitally with data, a data-driven Harare. This is what I'm thinking. And also, what is your future or your vision around smart cities, and how do you intend to resource it? Thank you.
Thank you, taxi driver. But I'm struggling to add you, but smart as I've added you, can you speak? Smartest? I think we've lost him. Your Worship, you can go ahead and respond to that question.
Okay. Yeah, smart city is at the heart of our manifesto. Remember, my president advocate Nelson Chamisa ran on a smart manifesto, and our manifesto was actually called SMART. So we as myself, as the mayor, believe that we have no option but to be smart. And that is the way we can jump the mini revolution. We need to jump ourselves to the fourth or fifth revolution, and that is the only way we can get access and interact the way cash has been able to do. EcoCash and the phone has been able to jump phases and make everyone participate in a banking format of some sort. Whereas if we had followed the brick and mortar model of trying to formalize and put people into a banking system, we'll still be trying to build brick and mortar banks in Morabinda and so forth. But the cell phone just jumped, and this is the way we can make our city be an interactive city, a digital city. It can actually become a metropolis that is even wider than what we envision. Because I do believe that in terms of metropolis, a person who is staying in Chekutu is actually living in Harare, if we've got our technology correct. The person who is living 100 kilometers from the radius of Harare can easily interact and live in a space defined by Harare if we've got the technologies correct. And that is also a way of avoiding these congregations around the environs of Harare that is currently happening. The whole country is trying to be living in Harare one way or the other, and they are having to physically do it because we are not yet a smart city. Yet we can be able to push and give access to people to the benefits of what it is to be a Harare citizen without them having to come to Harare, so that we don't have pressure on these things. So we are going to jump as we go forward. I know in August you will all have the power to give me this power and to give us this power to make these transformations that we envision. And we should be able to do it quite effectively.
Okay. George?
Yes, Tash.
We are done. I don't know if you have any last words. It's usually up to you before we close the show in the studio. Rufaro, any thoughts?
Rufaro's dropped off from being a speaker.
All right.
I've just added him back. Let's see if it works.
Okay.
No, it's been great having you. I think I'll allow myself to call you Jacob, since we did have some.
Yeah, that's my name.
Voice campaigns as young men together.
Yeah, that's my name. It is one many things for me.
Thank you for coming by. I think our audience really appreciates having you. I think we've learned quite a bit about the challenges you're facing, but I think you've also heard what business is saying and what your citizens are saying. And please don't take it too personally, because all we seek to do on the show is to share ideas, inspire thoughts, and together make a better Zimbabwe. Thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend. Stay safe. Be good. If you can't be good, be good at it.
So from here in the studio, thank you very much, Your Worship. I will call you Your Worship because you're representing the office.
Oh yes,
and not your personal capacity.
Wow.
We loved this. This was one of our best shows. I certainly learnt a lot, and I think putting yourself here shows a lot of character, and we must thank you for that. You spoke very well. You are a politician after all.
Thank you. We hope to perform well.
And I think that from here, there's so much that we can do for our city. We certainly love our city, and we want to see it develop. To the audience at home and on YouTube, thank you very much for joining us. This was a wonderful show, and let's catch each other again next week, Friday. Cheers.
Thank you.
This was fantastic.
No, thank you so much.
You actually